everyone, I'm Brad Bough. Along with co-host Lee Hutchinson, welcome to another episode of the Indiana History Project. With the summer season on here in Indiana, we always have bad weather. It seems like it just never avoids Indiana. Just Wednesday, we had severe storms strike our northern friends in the northern part of the state. So today with us we have Valerie Luchauer, and she has served the citizens of Lawrence County for 29 years as the County Emergency Management Coordinator. Valerie, welcome to the Indiana History Project.
Thank you, Brad. Glad to be here today.
Now, in your service to the county for the past 29 years, what are some of the more memorable moments that you have encountered here in the county?
Well, first, of course, we've had several tornadoes, but probably one thing that does stand out is the flooding in Fort Ritner and all the sandbagging that we did in Fort Ritner. We sandbagged there a couple times over there, and we did an all-night operation, and that's when I had to learn that I couldn't go 48, 72 hours without sleep and actually be productive. So that was a lesson learned there. So that's probably one of my bigger ones.
Now, you've had some other issues that came up with emergency management too. What are some of the roads that historically flood here in the county?
Of course, everything along White River floods, and all of the little river communities that we have. You know, Fort Ritner usually is our first because it's on the far eastern part of the county, so we always judge and gauge our flooding by Fort Ritner area and River Road. Then we get down to Tunnelton, and then we just keep moving on right along White River with down at South I Street, Guthrie Creek, Duncan Bend, Rivervale Bottoms, and then we keep moving on down to Peaceful Valley and down to Blue Spring Cabins and Chase Riffle, and right on down into the Paso Williams area onto Martin County. But there's a certain routes that we run, and sometimes if it's bad enough, it'll be up around the Donica Church area along Big Salt Creek. We'll have some flooding there, and out in Olytic and in Needmore.
Logan Bottoms?
Yeah, sometimes the Logan Bottoms flood as well. That's our more severe. And 2 years ago, we actually had the Guthrie Bottoms closed and flooded. And I hadn't seen them flooded that much since they had built Lake Monroe to stop the flooding. And so we had the T down there in the Guthrie Bottoms was closed, and that caused a lot of heartache, where a lot of people were landlocked then because of the flooding.
And people should never drive through any type of standing or moving water. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just a few inches of water that can take your car and move it. And the other thing you don't know is it may look like the road's there, but you may be driving and the road could be completely gone. And because I've seen water just scrape the pavement out, especially at bridge approaches, and they're gone. So yeah, we've had some deaths, unfortunately, too, people driving in high water.
People forget that their tires are filled with air, and that's going to add buoyancy to the vehicle.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Now, we've had some tornadoes in the county here recently even. What are some of the more memorable tornadoes that you can recall?
The first tornado that occurred when I was working in emergency management was the June 2nd, 1990 tornado that everyone remembers, that happened down at the junction, and then also had damage out on East 50. We had 51 injured out of that, and then one fatality, little Benjamin Ray, Tim Ray, and I think her name's Donna Ray's son, passed away in that. Toddler just stripped out of his mother's arms. So that was our most tragic tornado that we had. A lot of devastation there. We learned a lot of lessons.
I remember that one because we were living down in Mitchell at the time, and our granddaughters were in Bedford alone. Their parents had gone to a movie in Bloomington. Mm-hmm. So when the weather looked very bad, we jumped in the car and started for Bedford, and the tornado had just moved through. Yes. And we drove right down through the highway, through all that rubbish with bathtubs and electric wires and all the cables that were down. And went on into Bedford, and the kids didn't even know there'd been a storm. But when we came back, there was your people were already there, and they had everything all set up and I couldn't even drive through. And I thought it was ironic that I'd come through with the tornado, but I couldn't go back through.
One of the memorable things for me personally on that tornado is my mother and father were down at Petersburg at a fiddle contest, and they missed the tornado 3 times. They missed it in Petersburg, Jasper, actually Fort Lagodi, and Bedford. They just were in the right place at the right time and missed that because they left Petersburg before it hit and came in behind them. They stopped to have a bite to eat. It passed them, and so they just kept dodging it. And so that was really we still talk about that today, how they missed that tornado. They were just very fortunate.
And they probably didn't know it was there.
No, they knew something had happened.
They knew the weather was bad, and that's it.
Yeah.
But they just kept driving.
Then they could see the damage, and they knew something had happened. But they wasn't sure till then they started seeing a lot of the damage in the roadway and stuff, and figured out that a tornado would come through.
June 2nd, 1990 saw more tornadoes in Indiana than any other day in history. And that was surprising given the 1974, April 3rd, 1974
Yes.
outbreak. But June 2nd, 1990, there were more tornadoes in the state of Indiana than at any other time. The tornado just barely missed Bedford. Is that correct? The city of Bedford?
Yes, yeah. It came there at the junction of 50 and 37, and then kind of followed along the White River and come across and got Sand Pit there at the Pride Estates Mobile Home Park, and then kind of left it and then dropped down and got a little bit of damage out on Highway 50 East. Not too far from the one that just hit a couple years ago.
Okay. Now,
Actually, that was the year, 74 was the year Indiana had the biggest losses.
Yeah.
Actually, almost $2 billion.
In
Just from tornadoes in the state of Indiana alone.
in dollar damage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know Brad and I had discussed previously that the biggest tornado was the tri-state tornado as far as injuries and deaths.
yes.
Well over 600 people were killed in that.
What we're talking about, the tri-state tornado, it started in the state of Missouri, and to dispel the myth that a tornado can't cross a river, it crossed the Mississippi River, came into Illinois, continued on across all of southern Illinois, crossed the Wabash, came into southern Indiana, and ended a little bit east of the town of Princeton, as I recall. And if you look down around Princeton, you can find the historical marker to commemorate the tragic events of March 18th, 1925.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about, the tri-state tornado. It's interesting to do some research on this.
That was my birthday.
March 18th?
No, June the 12th,
No,
1925.
June the 25th, 19, okay.
I was 88 last week.
Well, happy
Wednesday.
birthday to Lee. I
Wednesday.
forgot that. Happy birthday to you, Lee.
You missed it.
I left you a birthday wish on Facebook. I surely did. Now, April 3rd, 1974. That was the super outbreak, and that was the largest outbreak in U.S. history, correct?
Yeah,
As
the
far
Palm
as-
Sunday outbreak.
No, the April 3rd,
Oh, the April
1974.
3rd, uh-huh.
Yeah. Palm Sunday was April 11th, 1965.
That's right.
And the April 1974, I remember those. I was old enough to remember those. Louisville, Kentucky got hit really bad, but they were crossing the river also. And it was the first time in U.S. history, and I know you and I discussed this on Facebook when we were chatting about the program. It was the first time in U.S. history that an entire state was placed under a tornado watch.
Oh, yeah.
The entire state. And no, not a watch, excuse me, a warning.
Right.
They could not predict where the next tornado was going to hit, so the National Weather Service simply put the whole state under a tornado warning. And it's the first time in history that a whole state's
Yeah.
been put under warning. And hadn't happened since,
No.
that an entire state.
probably with technology that we have today, they can pinpoint them a little better.
Right.
So, and that's what I think the big difference is, and with all the deaths and injuries that we had back in the one in the 20s, the tri-state, is because they didn't have the tornado sirens and the communication that they have today. And I don't even know how many homes were actually built with basements or shelters back then as well. We probably had some cellars and stuff back in the 20s, but I just wonder if that's why we had such a large amount of fatalities that time.
And when we lived on the farm, we had a smokehouse that was kind of dug into the side of a hill, but that was about it. There was no basement.
Right.
Have there been any tornado watches this year for this area?
I believe we have had some tornado
had
watches this year, but it's been a milder year compared to some of the ones that we've had. Just this Wednesday, we were watching. We weren't sure where that was going. We were, depending on which map you looked at, that we were under a moderate risk or a slight risk, and so we sent out the information early that day for everyone to, be sure and watch.
No. The warning systems are a blessing. I had a granddaughter who teaches down at Pekin, East Washington School, when that tornado hit last year.
Yes.
And she was standing there in the window, and they had all the children in protective situations. They knew not to let them go home. And so everyone was safe, but you could stand there and she could see the tornado going past the school.
Yes.
It stayed across the street from the school.
Yeah.
That was a deadly one.
Yeah, that was a really interesting situation down there. I went down to Salem right after that hit and assisted emergency management down in Washington County. And the unique thing about the schools in this particular tornado is each school that was involved did the right thing. Henryville dismissed the children. There were very few people in the building. It was hit. East Washington, did you say it was East Washington?
East Washington kept
the children in the school, and that was the right thing to do because it was not hit, and if they would have been out on the school buses, they would have been in the tornado path. So in each instance, both took different actions, but it was the exact right action for each school system.
And does that come with the advanced warning that we have now, or was it just the intel that the superintendents had on the ground, so to speak, kind of like a military operation?
I think that they did have enough advance warning, and so that give them time to make a good decision on what to do.
At East Washington, she said they had plenty of time to make a decision.
Yes.
And it was a deadly one.
Yes.
But Pekin been hit several times, that little valley.
Yes, it sure has. You can see the scars still yet
Yes,
today
it's
from all the
still
various tornadoes that went through there.
Yeah, on either
Yeah.
side of the hill.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and down in the Borden area.
And I can remember the Martinsville tornado, driving through there after that occurred, and
Yeah.
you could see the damage along Indiana 37.
Yeah, and that's the one that I actually lost a vehicle. I have personal experience with that Martinsville tornado.
Okay.
My daughter, who was at Anderson University at the time, was on her way back home. She had my van, and we had her car because it needed to be in the shop for some repair, and we were going to switch out vehicles. And we were talking. I knew severe weather was coming in, and we were discussing and monitoring. And I said, I think you need to seek shelter. So she sought shelter at the Kmart in Martinsville. Well, of course it was damaged, but you could definitely tell she was the daughter of an emergency manager because as soon as she went into Kmart, she went and she got a flashlight, she got batteries, and she asked the closest sales clerk where the bathroom was. She went and she sought shelter in there, and she had a emergency flashlight and batteries. And so she knew exactly what to do. She was not hurt. There were a lot of other people that were hurt that sought shelter, and the glass come in because they come at the last minute. The glass was blown out of the front, and there were several. She assisted with some of those folks that were injured, and our only loss was my van was totaled out in the parking lot. So
I've often thought the safest building is a small building.
yes,
Auditoriums and gymnasiums and supermarkets, not safe.
that's right. They're two freestanding buildings. I've had people actually say, well, we knew there was a tornado and we're going to go to Walmart. And Walmart is one of the worst places you could go because of the structure of the building. And they even, I think, lock their doors now if they hear of a tornado warning, and put everyone in shelter the best they can inside.
Well, I feel pretty safe because I work in the basement of the courthouse.
Yeah,
And
you're
in my humble, and I don't have any windows, so in my humble opinion, that's probably a very safe place. What do you're the professional, you tell me.
Yes, you are a very safe place. And then my office is right in Tornado Alley out off Sandpit Road by Pride Estate. So, so I don't particularly like to stay in my office. I like to go to my Emergency Operations Center, which is in the basement of the fire station on H Street, or some other safe location. Most of the times, if it looks like it's really going to be bad, you'll find me at the Sheriff's Department in dispatch. And that's where I was when it hit on May 25th.
2 shows in a row, we've mentioned that parcel of land, Lee.
Yeah.
It's where the old Lincoln School used to sit.
Oh,
So you go to the Emergency Management Center in the basement of the fire station. And then what duties do you perform there?
If we would have to, if we have a major situation, I monitor there, I get my resources ready, and that's my role, is to assist with getting resources that we don't have that we need to mitigate the situation, to help rescue people that are victims from the storms. I also am an information conduit. I provide the information to elected officials, keep them abreast of what's going on, seek their opinion if we need decisions made on equipment or expenses, and notify the Indiana Department of Homeland Security on any kind of emergencies we might have, and if we're going to anticipate any kind of resources that we're going to need.
So you are the coordinator with the fire, there's various fire departments all over the county.
Yes, we have 11 volunteer fire departments and 1 paid fire department, the city of Bedford.
And of course, the Sheriff's Department,
Yes,
conservation officers, state troopers,
yes,
all of that coordinates through you.
yeah. Any of the response that, like I said, you'll have an on-scene command, and then we can have the Emergency Operations Center if it's large enough that it warrants that, or I can perform those duties at the scene as well. So just depending on the nature and size of the incident, or whether we're in the Emergency Operations Center or with the command on scene.
Now you have volunteers around the county, just regular citizens like, say, myself, who
Yes.
volunteer to assist with tornado observation.
Yes, I do have my local amateur radio club is very good in taking the weather spotter classes, as well as I have several, like you said, citizens that are interested in those, and we have those every year. They're free from the National Weather Service, and every year we get 15 to 20 people. Now, after the 1990 tornado, we had close to 100 people take the spotter class, but I'm really pleased that we continue to have a good number of people, and new people every year turn out, so that we do have we're blessed to have a good volunteer base of people that want to service the area in that way.
I saw a lot of firemen out there at the course that I went to. I was a little bit surprised at that, but they really take an interest in it. It was apparent that the volunteer firefighters take it very serious, from different townships.
Right, yes, they do. That's another, you know, I just can't say enough about our emergency responders in Lawrence County. All of them, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, fire, Red Cross, you know, there are so many, the church organizations, there's so many people that I work with that they're just excellent people to work with. They're there when you need them, and we work really well together, and we work as a team. It's not one person's effort, we all work together. And, you know, you're only as good as your team and your volunteers around you, and I couldn't do it without them.
Now, you mentioned about churches.
Yes.
And that was very nice that the Tabernacle of Praise allowed us to have the class in their sanctuary.
Yes.
And I appreciated that the churches are involved in the
Yes.
community effort as well, right down to allowing us to have the classes right there in there.
Yeah, and we have a lot of churches when I have needs, and, you know, we come up and there'll be you never know. You know, there's always little quirks to every incident. And we may have something that somebody has a big need of that it's not covered by any federal program or something, and the churches have really come in and helped a lot to supply needs when we need to. So, yeah, I can't say enough about our churches, and they're willing to help.
I think we live in a part of the United States where people are willing to help each other and not wait for the federal program.
You're exactly right. And that was definitely evident in the Fayetteville tornado in March. I believe that was 2009. I think we have a photo of that.
Okay.
You want to show that
Yeah,
now,
well,
or you want to show that later?
We'll go through the photos as
Okay.
we go along. We can switch. There's a photo up here now. You want to comment on this one?
Okay, that photo that's up there right now is a photo of the tornado that was that hit Bedford at June 2nd, 1990, and someone in Lagodi snapped a photo of that one. I didn't see anything when in my research of any pictures of the actual tornado from June 2nd, 1990. Someone may have one, but in my research on the internet, I didn't find one. But I did find that one from Lagodi, and I know it's the same one that hit Bedford.
That's the one that hit the intersection. The
Yeah,
junction?
down at the junction. Yeah.
We should put that up someplace. Maybe we should frame that, or we should put it in the paper again. It's a good time
Yeah.
to put that in the back of the newspaper.
Yeah.
Barry Majors, he was a guest on the show for a racing segment, and he was telling me that on that exact date, he was at a reunion at the 4-H fairgrounds when this tornado came through. So I'll talk to Barry and see if we can't find maybe somebody out there at the reunion snapped a picture. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, it could
But
be.
I'll ask Barry and find out.
Yeah, that's why I said there might be some folks that have some, but they've not been posted to anything on the internet.
Well, he'll see this. He's a fan of the Indiana History
There you
Project,
go.
so Barry will see this. And I will be talking to him. Now we have some destruction damage here. You want to comment on that, Valerie?
Yeah, that is at the intersection. That is the damage, one of the photos of the damage at the intersection there. You remember the old Red Rooster and the
Sure.
Mini Mart and all that
B&B
through
Auto
there.
Sales?
Yes. All that area there. Yeah, it looked like a bomb had went off in that area.
That looks a little bit worse than some of the bombs I've seen go off, literally.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is in Mitchell, I believe?
Yeah, that's the Mitchell tornado, and let me check my notes so I give you the exact date on that one. That was April 2nd, 2006, and that was an F1 tornado. It came through right down Main Street, come right in on 60 West, came right across and went down through Main Street and did a lot of damage right around 4 Points.
Ah.
Down there. It was a small one, but if you got the damage, it wasn't small to you, and it did tear a house up in behind the JC store where Ruler is now. There was a small house, I believe it was vacant, that was damaged in that.
Okay, you talk about the severity of the tornado,
Yes.
the F scale, if you will.
Yes.
Would you care to explain to the viewers what the F scale is and how many tornadoes there are in the scale?
Well, there's the Fujita scale that they use to measure the winds and the damage of that, and they've even changed that in the last couple years. And so it goes from 0 to 5, and you really need to study it a lot. But knowing that 5 is the worst, and that's what 5 is what they think just hit Oklahoma, out at West Oklahoma, the horrible damage that they had there. And I believe Joplin, Missouri was a 5.
Joplin, Missouri, we're talking about the tornado that struck there it struck on May 22nd, 2011 to be
Yes,
exact. It was
yeah.
a Sunday.
Yeah.
Good thing because it destroyed the school.
Yes,
There
and
we
one
go
of the
again.
hospitals.
But the scale is 0 to 5,
Yes,
with 0 being
the weakest
the
tornado.
weakest and 5 being the worst.
Yes,
And so when you hear Valerie talk about the different scales, you'll get an idea of it. The fastest wind speed recorded on the planet was the May 3rd, 1999 tornadoes in Oklahoma City. It's like 318 miles an hour, as I recall from my research.
Wow.
That's typical, isn't it? 300 mile an hour. or
Well,
more.
Yeah.
approaching that, yes. That's faster than an Indy car goes down the straightaway.
that's for sure.
That's something.
Yes,
Now, we have another picture up here. It looks like some tree damage.
Yes, that tornado came through on June the 3rd, 2008, and that hit out at Mount Pleasant Road by the Mount Pleasant Church. And one home was destroyed out of that. A humongous tree fell right in the center of the home and was destroyed. And an interesting fact about that particular time was I was at a doctor's appointment out at the medical center, and we all had to evacuate from the the physician's building over there down to the basement of IU Health Bedford, now at that time Bedford Regional Medical Center. And so I waited that out in the basement, and emergency responders were trying to get a hold of me to reach me. And so I had to get a police escort up to the dispatch center because I couldn't get to my car. So that was my interesting one on Mount Pleasant.
And was that a F2, something like that?
That was an F1. It was a
F1,
minor,
okay.
yeah. And that was, like I said, there was damage there, and then a little bit out on Todd Lane and Bartlettsville Road, there was some damage. It kind of dropped down a couple different places there.
So it was minor damage then?
Yes, minor damage, but like I said, I do remember that one home, a nice limestone home, damaged. Like I said, the tree fell right in the center of the home, and they had to raise the home from that.
On your warning signal, the sirens, are they all over where are they located?
We have sirens in the city of Bedford and the city of Mitchell.
Okay.
Those cities install those sirens. I know a lot of people would like to see sirens out in the county.
I was wondering maybe the county should have, in various communities.
We have looked into that and studied that several times, and it would cost anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000 to install enough to provide the coverage, and then there's an ongoing sustainment cost of keeping them up. And right now, the state's position and officials we discussed with that we could purchase a weather radio that's going to wake you up in the middle of the night with a loud siren sound for about $40 a household, and there's no sustainment, and be saving money. So that's kind of been our goal, and we've been distributing weather radios the last couple
of years.
And
I think people would be willing to pay half the cost or so on.
Yeah.
To get that.
Yeah, and we have them available. I know I dropped some off at Brad's office for veterans. We have veterans, elderly, those who are maybe like homebound, or have major health problems.
She's talking about me.
We've been
Now,
distributing
one more question. Do they go on automatically?
Yes, if you keep them plugged in.
You just keep it plugged in.
Yes.
It goes on. Now that's safety. That's
Yeah.
safety.
And it will wake you up from a sound sleep. It is very loud. So,
And you have them at the office.
yes, I do. I have a limited number now that have those restrictions to them, and I'm expecting another shipment from the Indiana Department of Homeland Security anytime. Anytime I can seek funds to purchase those to help those who can't afford them, we're doing. But I recommend, you're always looking for something to buy someone for Father's Day's coming up, Christmas, birthdays.
Yes.
And a weather radio is something that makes a very good gift and could save their life someday.
That is true.
So I recommend that everyone that can try to purchase one of those.
Now, we got another picture up here, and just looks like a tornado off in the distance.
Yes, that is a picture of the Fayetteville tornado from March 9th, 2009, and that one is an F3 tornado. I just kind of put those in there, the ones I could find, so you kind of have an idea of what the severity of the tornado, and then what we could see as the damage path. That's the one that hit out at the Younger farm, the Ramsey farm, Delilah Taylor, the Boltons, the stuff, probably kind of out close.
Out on East 50?
No, this is out off 158,
Oh,
out
okay.
by the Fayetteville store, back
Okay.
in there between Fayetteville and Williams, probably close to your old home place of when you was growing up in Fayetteville.
Yes, it is. Hey, you speak of the Boltons. I had dinner with Dallas Bolton here, maybe a month or so ago.
And I have pictures of their home on there that was destroyed.
And he was telling me about that. And that looks like a school bus in this picture. Is that
That-
Howard Younger's?
That's Howard Younger's.
I can remember him being a bus driver.
Yeah, and the best of my memory, Howard and Sharon had just came back in from eating out after church, and he was laying on the couch, I believe, watching TV, and she was looking out the back and saw it coming, and I think she was injured. She had to be hospitalized. It wasn't a serious injury. She's doing well today. In fact, I saw him just a couple weeks ago, and so the bus landed right there close to where Howard was sitting on the couch or laying on the couch. That's a miracle.
So this F3 tornado picked up a school bus,
Yes, his school bus had dropped it.
dropped it on the house.
Yes.
If anybody has any questions about the power of a tornado, that's an excellent example of why you need to take cover.
Yeah. One of the, and also couple unique things about that tornado, they're particular at the Youngers, a couple of observations. On their daughter, the Ramsey's house that was right in front of them, the tornado was so strong it even started pulling the carpet and ripping the carpet up and the nails out, and then their grandson was right next to them on the other side of the Youngers, and they had a mobile home with a stick-built addition on it, and the addition was damaged, but the mobile home was still intact, and that's where they sought shelter, as best to my memory, and I found that amazing.
Isn't that something?
Right, and I don't know, if you're a God-fearing person, but I know they are, and that's what they credited to. So, but that was something that I found very unique about that one. I
Now
think some of those other pictures are Dallas's house there.
Okay, this picture, you want to comment on it?
Yeah, that's in the yard over by Dallas and Cheryl Bolton's house. Their daughter Heather sent that to me. And then there's the one following that, and that is a picture of Dallas's house. It actually lifted the house up off the foundation, and they saw it as they were seeking shelter in the basement. They saw it actually lift and sit down. And across the street, Delilah Taylor, her house did the same thing, and she had to get a new home. And so there was actually 5 people that I know had to get new homes out of that particular one.
And what jumps out at me about that picture is that tree stands there just totally stripped of vegetation.
Yes.
Absolutely stripped.
Yes.
And that's an F3 that's just in the middle of the scale. We
Yes.
haven't even got to the top 3, have we?
That's right. That's right.
You got 0, 1, 2, then you got 3 right in the middle.
Yeah, and then 4,
4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I believe 5's the highest.
Oh, 5, yes, excuse me. Yeah, 3, 4, and 5. We haven't got to them, but my goodness.
Yes,
That's just amazing that the middle strength.
The power of it is
Right.
You don't know it until you've been in it, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm the amateur here. I don't know what these strengths are. I'm trying to comprehend them. Thank you for the information, though. That's
Yeah.
just amazing to me that tree was just stripped.
Yes.
Now, we got another picture. Is this here in the county?
Yes, we have actually some really good photos of the May 25th, 2011 tornado. I believe that's that one. Let me check my notes here. I'm pretty sure that is. In fact, I know it is. There's a couple different ones. A couple people were able to, and that's what I said with our phones now, and where we can take video with them and
Right.
and pictures. We have camera ready now.
yeah.
And so there were a couple different people took video, so I have a couple different angles. There's one, and this one particularly, you see all the debris. This one you can tell it's been down and see all the debris at the bottom of it, of the tornado. That's all debris where it hit the ground, and you can see.
Looks like there's even some debris up in it.
Yes, definitely. When you start seeing them like that, they've been on the ground for a little bit. And that's what makes them go out a little bit further and stuff. But this was one, and they actually saw this one coming. This is the one that hit out at Brown Station Road and Highway 50, and then also on South Leatherwood Road over around the Paul Lombrick house. And the Batman home got hit pretty hard there. The Lombrick house, it was vacant, it was destroyed. And then, of course, the family there, like I said, at Brown Station Road, we had 2 homes. The one that Mrs. Souders lived in, it was totally destroyed. I believe it was like a modular home,
Yeah.
maybe. And salt shelter there at her granddaughter's, and that's another one where it picked it up, and then the concrete blocks of the foundation came in, and one of them hit Mrs. Souders, and she was hospitalized for a few days in that, but she's recovered from that now. And they've rebuilt and replaced all of those.
Is this a picture of the house?
Yeah, that's the granddaughter that Mrs. Souders went to the home, and it picked it up, and they were in the basement of that home.
Lee, did you have some questions?
No, I was going to change the subject.
That's all right.
You were talking about the radio and the warnings and the radio and the sirens, and now I see all this. What about all this?
The Indiana Department of Homeland Security purchased these kits for demonstrations for us to show how you can take a simple backpack and put a bunch of disaster supplies in it. And it amazed me what all they were able to get into that backpack. They have a tarp here for shelter, catch rainwater. You could use it for a blanket. They have a plastic bag that's a water container with a spout on it. And we have a first aid kit. We have some rations, food rations. I'm sure those look very appetizing, but if you're hungry, they're better than nothing. We have some feminine supplies that can be used for regular that, or they could be used as bandages for severe bleeding. And we actually have a NOAA weather radio that has an AM and FM radio on it, and a flashlight and a lantern. So that's a very multiple use tool, as well as a multi-tool that could be used for many, many things. Matches and candles, a whistle. A lot of people will say, well, why do you have a whistle in there? Well, if you're down in your basement of salt shelter and your home's destroyed, and you hear help coming, they need to know where you're at, or you're in the closet.
It may be dark too if you need that whistle.
That's exactly right, and that's what that's for. Is for
I would want that
alerting.
whistle, definitely.
Yeah, and gloves, because it's always sharp. You have nails, you have broken glass, you have boards. Very dangerous situation. And I thought these were very neat, the pouches with the drinking water in them, because that's always when I tried to put one together. I always with the water bottles, and it got so heavy, but I hadn't seen pouches before, and that's the way to go.
Yeah, that might hold a pint.
Yeah.
That's about 4, yeah.
Yeah, that'll get you through a couple days. And then you have biodegradable bags for any kind of waste that you would need, and tissues and some tablets to put in for water to make it
this will
drinkable.
purify your water.
Yes, yeah. And what's that there in front
That's a
of?
hand warmer.
Hand warmers if it's cold.
Poncho. Another poncho, I think.
Yeah. And one of those breakable light sticks. And then if you needed a mask, a respirator, for instance, if there's a lot of debris. That's the one thing I remember seeing at the granddaughter's home there, in that last photo that we just showed, how much insulation and stuff. It's just like there's white cotton all over everything. And so if you're in that respirator would come in handy to help you from breathing, like the insulation and stuff from the debris, and then some antiseptic wipes.
I'd never considered that, but that would be a problem of breathing.
Yes. Yeah, that's the way or dust.
The dust.
Yeah.
Between the dust and the...
But it amazed me, and you can purchase these. I looked online, and you can buy them for as inexpensive to going as expensive as you want, depending on the size of your family or how many days out. Something like this would probably cost between $25 and $40, depending on what vendor you went to. Or you could pick up a backpack at Goodwill, a yard sale, secondhand store, and buy a little at a time. I mean, multi-tools. You can get a lot of things at the Dollar Tree. These water pouches here, those something you might want to go in with several families and purchase in bulk together and share the cost. Or, just in your wherever your safe area is, a closet or your basement, just put some bottles of drinking water and then rotate them out. Set a time on your calendar, like 6 months out or the first of every month that you check you know, on your, and we'll rotate out what you need if there's going to be an expiration date. But like I said, the majority of this stuff you can pick up here.
Now, you can make your own
Locally.
back pouch very easy.
Yes. Yeah, and even put just a battery operated flashlight and a local weather or a local radio. Make an AM radio with batteries. We do have in our emergency plans, if we had an emergency where we needed to get public information out, is we will send someone, whether it be an amateur radio volunteer, a law enforcement volunteer, fire department, whoever, over to WBIW 1340. That's what our plan to broadcast emergency public information out through that area, so that if everyone should have at all times at least some type of battery operated radio, so they can know what's happening, because you can't always count on the internet and cell phones.
Now, how long will this drinking water last?
Well, Lee, can you get one there and see if there's an expiration date? I think we checked it once before, and it was 2 or 3 years. Not sure if there's one on it.
I got part of it in Spanish. I can't read that.
Down here at the below, this is good till August 2017, and it was manufactured in 2012, so 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for folks out in the county, this would be really important, because if your power gets knocked out, you don't have any way to get your well to pump water to you.
Not if you have an electric well. That's true.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
So if you've got a regular hand pump, you probably could get some water, but if it's strictly an electric pump on your well, you're going to need something like that.
yeah. Yeah, like I said, I saw them as inexpensive as $25 already made up, and then for family of 4 or whatever, or depending on what you want in it, you know, it could go up to $500 or $600. The other thing that is not in here, that for personal, if you, like myself, I think all 3 of us here have glasses on. Put an old prescription, an old pair in there that you don't wear anymore, because that's better than nothing.
that's
Or
a
if you
good
just
idea.
need readers, and also, you know, 2 or 3 days worth of your prescriptions, especially if you're on insulin, blood pressure medicine, heart medicine, that type of thing. You know, if you put 2 or 3 days in there, and then pick a date on your calendar or on your phone or something that you remind you that you go in there, you take that out and put 3 more, and every month you just rotate that out. Because, I mean, how many of us, our medicines are in the beside our bed, at the medicine cabinet, or wherever, and we would have you know, you might need that medicine if you were trapped in your home, or, you know, under rubble for, you know, 2 or 3 days. And that's the thing, you know, if we would have something like the scale of what hit out in Oklahoma, you know, it might be 48 hours before somebody could get to you. So, you know, it's important to know where your medicines are, and at least have
Well, actually, if you have a safe place in the basement or a safe place in the home, you might want to stock that room a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I say. You know, and that's where I would put this. I would put that there. You know, wherever you deem is your safest place in your home, that's where I would put this kit.
Another myth that I observed while we were doing this research is opening windows. Do you care to
Yes.
comment on that?
Yeah, that is an old myth that came out from years ago, and they used to always say that it was to equalize the pressure in the home
yeah.
and lessen the damage. And they said you don't have to let the windows up; the tornado will find its way in. You don't have to open it up to let it in, but that doesn't work. If you got winds that fast, open up those windows isn't going to make any difference. So,
Well, I always thought if you had everything closed, then the tornado would suck everything away and your house would explode.
yeah.
That was the way it went.
Yes. Yes.
But you waste valuable time when you could be seeking shelter.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the other thing too. Yeah, you know, the thing to do, if the tornado warning, if you hear that, seek shelter immediately, and try to put as many walls between you and the tornado. For instance, if you are at someplace like Walmart or Kmart or the grocery store, try to get into the bathrooms. Now, they're not always big enough, or, you know, in the storage areas where they have, you know, like produce, the coolers and things, or, you know, putting as many walls between you and the outside as possible to protect your head for any kind of flying debris. that comes in. Those are some of the safest things that you can do. And don't try to outrun the tornado if you know that the last tornado that hit, we had that horrible one that hit in West. And then, like a week or a few days later, another one came in and hit a place, I believe it's called El Reno. And what happened when it hit West is some of them outran the tornado. And so others thought they would do that as well. That second one that came in, they hit it at rush hour traffic. The interstates and highways become back, they become traffic logged. They couldn't move, and it sucked those cars right up in it. And there were several fatalities just from people out on the roadway. So,
The car is the worst place to be, I guess.
Yes. And, I've seen it both ways. I've seen people ride it out in a car and be fine, and if they salt shelter in a ravine, the ravine be absolutely full of limbs and debris and that kind of stuff that it could have took hours to find the person. Then I've seen people like in that last tornado out there, a mother and her new baby was sucked right out of the car and killed. And so I've seen it both ways. So you just have to, at the time, what you feel is your best survival, and take the chance whether you hit the ravine, stay in the car, or which. But they do say that staying in the car is not a safe thing.
Now, I've heard about getting up under bridges. Now, that's another myth.
Yes. In the past, when we would have tornado safety talks and the Weather Service come down and stuff, you used to see where people would get up in those overpasses, that V of the overpass, and that is the worst place you could be because they said it goes through there like a wind tunnel and actually increases the suction and will pull you right out from underneath there. So that is one of the most dangerous places to be, is up in the V of those.
It actually accelerates the wind as it comes through.
Yeah, because you know how it is if you were pouring water through a funnel and you narrow it down the path that the water's going to go through, you narrow down the path that the wind's going to go through, so you're going to have more force pulling it through.
Kind of like putting your thumb over the end of a hose.
Exactly.
It increases the speed, thereby increasing the threat to your life.
Yes.
So don't go up in the bridge overpass.
That's right. And you'll see a lot of people doing that. I've seen lots of photos of people in those overpasses, like on interstates and such.
Now, we have several tornadoes that have struck Indiana throughout its history. You were speaking about the Palm Sunday tornadoes. What was the significance of those in north central Indiana, if there was any?
I think that it was just the frequency of the number that we had, and there was the injuries and stuff. And again, that was back, in the 70s earlier, that, we just didn't have the technology that we have today that meteorologists can see. I mean, they can see right down into those tornadoes now, on radar and all the tools that they have, and they can really predict where they're going to be and what time, and so people have more time to seek shelter. But there are those little tornadoes, those weak tornadoes that pop up, these F0s and these F1s, that don't always show up on the scale and on the radar, and that is why it's still important that we have weather spotters and with the trained eye to pick up those things that we do not see on radar.
So the Doppler radar can easily miss a 0 or a 1 on the Fujita scale.
Right, that's right. They can do that because, like I said, it's like anything, we have error, so an error rate with that. So, that's why it's still important that we continue to have those classes every year, because no matter how much technology we have and tools, it's still, we need those trained eyes on the ground.
Well, this has been a very informative program. I hope everyone, education is a solution.
Yes, it is. That is the key.
To a lot of things, but especially the tornado warnings.
Yes.
And the myths you've dispelled.
Yeah.
Very informative.
One of the other things that we find ironic too is because, they are increasing with frequency that we're having them. That's one of the things that I was really surprised when I went to do the research for this project. I forgot how many we just had since I've been you know, in this position, how many that we've actually dealt with. And that doesn't even count the straight line wind damage that we've had, of multiple ones that I've had of those that people thought they may have been tornadoes because of damage, but they were straight line winds. But, you know, there's just so much about these, and educating people and knowing what to do about these.
But with your trained eye, you could look at a tree and tell if it's been twisted or if it's been just pushed over.
Yes, yeah. The Weather Service, going out with them on a lot of these incidents, yeah, I've been able to pick up a lot of little things that they've shown me, and the pattern that if the debris is all laying in one direction, that's usually a straight line wind. And the other thing that I didn't know till in the last 10 years, that Bradford pears are very susceptible to windstorms, and usually if you have trees damaged, that's what's going to be damaged. You know, they'll break right off and stuff. So they're very beautiful trees, but they do break off pretty easily in the windstorms.
And you could look at the pear tree and see if it's straight lined or if it's been twisted.
Yes, yeah.
There again, doing the research, you find this out, that's how the Weather Service, and there's swirl marks through the fields.
Yes, that's true.
The Weather
can
Service
see 'em.
can go up in a plane and actually say, okay, that was straight line wind, that was a tornado, by looking at the ground.
Yeah.
And it made sense. you know,
Yes.
common sense. You just don't think about it,
Right.
but there it is right in front of you.
Yeah.
You say, oh yeah,
It all depends on your perspective. If you're the one whose home was damaged, you know, and you have a lot of repair to it, it doesn't matter. It's damage, whether it's it's a tornado to you, you know. Because I've had several people that we went out and looked at and said, no, it had to be a tornado. I heard it. But straight line winds, you know, you always say they hear the train roar, you know, the loud sound, but those straight line winds can be pretty loud as well coming in. And so we actually had one in January. I believe it was in January. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago that hit down around Hillcrest Circle down in the city of Bedford, and they thought that might have been a tornado, but the Weather Service came in and said no, it was straight line winds. And down along River Bluff Road, there was some damage in that area. So we actually have had the city of Bedford sustain some damage, but it was determined to be straight line winds.
and that's another thing that we could talk about too, is there is no safe month.
No, and that's, you know, used to it was March through the end of June, July, but now, you know, a devastating tornado we had was in December down in Evansville, you know, a few years back, and it hit a large mobile home park, and we had some fatalities down there in December. You know, like I said, we've had them January and February, so or any time now. You know, the weather patterns have just really changed a lot, and so you just always have to be prepared.
And even a small thunderstorm could spawn a tornado.
Yes, yeah.
Hail, one indication is heavy hail.
Yes, a lot of times. In fact, the night that we had the tornado out on East 50, we definitely had huge hail. I mean, I was at the sheriff's department at dispatch, and yeah, my car had to have quite a bit of repair done to it, and we watched it, and it was definitely 2-3 inches in diameter or larger. It was tennis ball and ping pong ball to tennis ball size hail. It was some pretty large hail.
So,
Now, about how much would this kit cost? The one that we're seeing right here, if I wanted to buy one for myself and one for the house, keep one in the car and one in the house, about how much would that cost for one of these kits?
Depending on which vendor you use, when I looked them up, $25 to $40.
For all this?
Yes.
And that includes a little flashlight radio
and
gizmo.
yeah, because they buy them in bulk.
Oh,
they get them
okay.
cheaper. But these, you can buy this. I looked online, and they're running $17 to $19. So, and I do believe that the kits that with the $25 kits did not have this in it. It just had a flashlight and a little battery-operated radio.
But you can put all this in just a little like school backpack.
Exactly. that's why I said when I started pulling it out, I was amazed. I'm like, they got all of that in there, and look how much safety supplies is there. You definitely could make it through 2 or 3 days with what you have here.
And there again, since no month is safe, you're definitely going to need the blanket.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said, because what happens a lot of times afterwards, you get more rain. So that could be your shelter to cover you to keep you dry. Or if it gets hot, the next day it's really hot, that could keep you cool, some shelter. One time we looked at all the different uses. You could collect rainwater on it and those kind of things. So there's lots of things you can do with a tarp.
The thing that amazed me about the Evansville tornado when you talked about that is, here's all this devastation from a tornado when the temperature was 70 degrees, and like 2 days later there was snow all over it.
Yes. Same thing happened at Pekin. They had snow when they were out there doing recovery there. So, yeah, but most of the time, I have noticed that when the tornadoes hit, the next day will be the most beautiful sunshiny day that you've ever seen when we went out to do damage assessment.
I saw that on the internet. It said after the tornado, you may have beautiful weather.
Yes.
Following it.
Yes. Yeah, and you're like, man, I can't believe this devastation, this storm just came through here, and how gorgeous it is out today.
And I read about multiple vortexes too out of the same storm system. So just because you had one tornado come through, if the storm's still going on, it's not necessarily safe to pop your head up. Is that correct?
That's correct. Down at the Peak in Henryville, they think there was at least 2, maybe 3 with that one. And there have been some people that said that they thought there was 2 out here on Highway 50 as well.
So multiple vortexes, use due caution before you come out, even after it's gone.
Yes.
Well, Valerie, we're getting ready to close here. What I would like you to do is just tell the audience, give them some basic safety tips, what you would do if it were you in the tornado, and hopefully they'll follow your lead and listen to what you have to say. So the tornado siren goes off, you hear it, what do you do, Valerie?
Well, probably like everyone else, depending on where I'm at, if it's something unusual, then I will look to see what it looks like, to see if it's coming in my particular area, because when we do sound sirens, we sound them as precaution, even though it could be south of Bedford, north of Bedford, central Bedford, Olettic, Hiltonville, just so that because storms change. Just like the weather chasers that were killed in this last tornado is because the storm changed directions and caught them up in it. So, but the best thing to do is when that warning, you hear that tornado warning and that siren, seek shelter. As many walls between you and the tornado, the outside that you can do, try to protect your head. If you can throw mattresses, blankets, covers over you, to keep the debris off, the flying glass, that would help. If you've got a basement, seek that. Interior closet. A lot of people go get in the bathtub and the bathrooms because a lot of times that's what you see standing is the plumbing in houses, but I've seen the plumbing ripped out too. So there's no 100% safe place. You just have to look at what that situation is for you at that time.
And my friends in Peru had a 2x4 driven straight through their wall.
Yes.
And that was the tornado May 30th, 2004, I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen broom straws right through boards and trees and such, and a playing card stuck in a tree. There was a playing card put in a tree down at Henryville. Yeah, that was one of those fascinating ones, like, oh my, the pictures that they came out of that one.
People wouldn't think about a playing card being a fatal device.
Pieces
but
of straw
at
driven into
that
trees.
speed, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Valerie, this program has been very informative historically, and it's also been very informative from a safety standpoint. So I'm very happy with this program that we here on the Indiana History Project could provide this service to the citizens of Lawrence County and anybody else viewing for that matter. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Valerie Luchauer, for your 29 years of service to the citizens of Lawrence County. Lee, thank you for co-hosting again. I'm Brad Bough. On behalf of the Indiana History Project, I would ask you to like us on Facebook And remember, if you love your freedom, think of that. So long, everyone, and we'll see you next time.